What is going up, guys? This is the Flamespot here, and we are back with a brand new paper game video. And this paper game is called Empires of Destruction. Now, the name of this game was actually suggested by someone named Torjo. And he suggested this in our Paper Computer Games Discord. So Paper Computer Games, I'm sure you've heard about him. He's made his own Discord, and on there's quite a few of us in the paper gaming community. If you want to, I'll leave the link in the description. You can go to it, or you can probably chat with us, ask us questions, or we can ask you questions, anything like that, and maybe even get help from you guys, such as naming our paper games, just like what Torjo did to help me. Now, what exactly is Empires of Destruction? Well, as you can see, there's this giant battle map right here with like some rectangle things over here. Right now there's no rectangle things on this side. We'll get into that pretty soon. However, basically this game is like a Total War game in a sense. So these are actually units with a certain amount of troops in them, and you get to command them, move them across the battlefield wherever you want, and you're going to be going against enemy units. So this is actually going to be a player versus player game. Now, what you're going to need to make this game is basically going to be a ruler, some colored pencils, a die, scissors, pencil, and pretty much some paper. And that's pretty much what's gonna help you make this game. Alright, now let's get more into it. Alright, first we're going to start off with our units. Now, there are 4 types of units. We have archers, cavalry, infantry, and your assassin. Now, each of these units have key components on how you use them in the battlefield and how they move and attack. So, let's start with the archers. So, each unit also has a certain number of members in them, as well as a certain range. So, with our archers, you start off with 2 units, again, per each team that is playing. So you have 2 units of 3 archers each. So each of them, I have a little 1, 2, 3 right here. If you want to keep track of them, you can just put like an A on one and then B on the other, and then on a separate sheet of paper, just write A1, 1, 2, 3, again, to count how many soldiers you have in that one, so it's not cluttered on here. Or you can just write the amount of troops on here, on the unit itself. So they have 2 units of 3 troops each, and they have a range of 4.5 centimeters. Now, what that means is while a unit is on a map, let's say we have a unit right here, and let's just pretend right now that this other archer unit is an opposing unit. Oh, that focused out. Basically what's going to happen whenever you attack, you're going to draw a circle where your guy is, move it, and take a ruler from where your circle is and try to measure out however many centimeters it is. So the dot was right here. Since this other unit is within the range of 4.5 centimeters, and that means I can attack this unit. Now, we'll get more into attacking later. I just wanted to quickly explain range. So, range, again, for the archer is 4.5 centimeters. So, now we have cavalry. With our cavalry, we have 2 units of, again, 3 soldiers each. However, the range for these are going to be 2 centimeters. Now, things are going to balance out in the movement phase and in the battle phase. You will see. Alright. Next, we have infantry. Now, you can see we have 3 units of 6 soldiers each. However, again, to try to balance it out, the infantry only has a 1.5 centimeter range. Lastly, we have the assassin. Now, the assassin is going to be like a specialty unit that we're going to talk more into in just a little bit. However, there's only 1 unit of the 1 soldier, and it has a range of 2 centimeters. So now that I explained all the stats of these units, it's time to actually make the other opposite team's units itself. So this will go by a little fast forward thing. Well, now that we have all our troops together, it is finally time to go on to the battlefield. So now we're here at the battlefield, and there's quite a few terrain features that are quite important. However, first we're going to look at the little battle lines we have first on the sides. Now, each of these lines are supposed to be to restrict the player from positioning their troops at the start of each game to pass that line, and they're the same on both sides. So whenever the game first starts, you place all your units on either side of these battle lines, whatever strategy you want. So you can just make like a line, you can go like that if you want, as long as the unit doesn't pass the line for both sides. Now, the line is the same distance away on each side, and it is 5 centimeters on each side, so if you want to make it, then you can. This is just 2 pieces of paper that have been taped together down the center on the back, just very close together so that you can easily fold it so that it fits in a folder and that it still looks pretty seamless on the front, especially in the middle part. You really want that because that's going to help you with your movement. Now, when I say movement, we are going to demonstrate with this little infantry guy. So, in order to move, you must first choose the troop that you want to move. After that, you're going to draw a circle in the center of where it is, where that cutout diamond is. Remove the troop so that you can see the circle. Place your pencil on top of it and flick it. And wherever the flick lands, then that's where you place your diamond over top the end of the flick, and that's where your movement ends. However, from this position, so let's say it did flick and it end right here, you're not required to face forward. You can actually reposition and angle it however you want, angle the unit however you want. So maybe let's say if there's enemies in front of you and you wanted to make it harder for them to hit you, then you can aim it like this. If you want to, let's say you had friendly archers behind you, then you might want to go like this, and I will explain that a little bit later. So, that's the movement. This is a turn-based game in which each player is going to be able to move 3 of their units at a time per turn. So, let's say that we just have a random setup. I'm not going to place all the units on the field. Let's say we have this many units on the field at the start of the game. Whoever goes first can be whatever you want. You can roll a die and see who gets closer to like a number of sorts, or rock, paper, scissors over it. Doesn't matter. But whoever goes first, they get to choose 3 units they can move. Now, whenever you move, you pick the unit, you flick, you move them. So, let's say I decide to move these 2 infantry and this cavalry. So, the infantry both move, and now you're on to the cavalry. There are different stats again for movement in terms of units. So infantry, they get 1 flick movement. Cavalry, they get 2 since they're on horses, so they get to, you can flick once and then you can flick again, and that still only counts for 1 movement technically, even though they get to move twice. That's just because they're on horseback. Archers get 1 movement, and assassin also gets 2 movements, so you can flick and then flick again, and that still counts as 1. After those 3 movements though, let's just go back to here. The next thing that a player can do is go into a battle phase if they can. And by battle phase, that means that you have to be in range of an opponent, such as at the beginning I explained all of the ranges of all the units. So how you figure that out is by placing your ruler on top of the middle of your diamond, and then checking to see if the enemy unit that you're trying to attack is within that range. So infantry, it is 1.5 centimeters, so you have to be really close in order to actually attack them, which is why archers are so good, since they can be far away. So in this case, you cannot attack. However, let's say if the unit was here, the other unit, the center doesn't have to be in range, it just has to touch the box at all. So if the range is inside of anywhere in the box, so let's say even if the unit was like right here, then technically the 1.5 centimeters is there, it's still in range. Now, you can also angle your ruler so that 1.5 centimeters could be down there. If the enemy unit was here, that would still attack. Now, however, if there is no unit there, then that means the player's turn is over, and it's time for the opponent's turn to move their 3 guys. Yeah. And so forth until you can go on to battle, and you keep on moving until you can battle. Now, some things to consider. Let's say you have a unit behind another unit and you try to flick to move. However, your flick either hits your friendly unit, hits the friendly unit, or even flicks an enemy unit. If you are able to flick an enemy unit, then it's going to initiate a battle phase immediately. If you flick a friendly unit from behind, then your unit has to stop wherever the flick is. So let's say if I flicked here and it got around here, then my unit will have to be as close as I can to the other unit and try to center up the diamond however you can. You cannot cross over units, you have to be able to go around. However, let's say the flick went around there, then if the flick ended right here and you had a unit right here, you cannot move this unit. However, you can use yours, you can move yours to and try to get the closest direction. Again, you cannot overlap units. You have to keep them separate, but keep them so that the end of the flick ends on the diamond as close as you can. Now, there is more movement modifiers in this game. It's actually pretty complex, so there's also terrain. Now, we have 3 main terrain features, technically 4. One of them is, so the most basic one is your grassland. Nothing is different from what I've told you beforehand. However, the other terrain features all alter movement for all troops. Well, not all, but some troops in some way. So, let's say you are in the forest. So, if an infantry is in the forest, then nothing changes with them. Their range stays the same, their movement stays the same, nothing happens. If a cavalry gets in the forest, though, then their movement goes down to, they only get 1 movement. Instead of the 2 flicks, they will only get 1. Let's say if they use 1 flick, and they go here, and they use the 2nd flick, and they're in the forest, then their next turn, they will only be able to go 1 flick to try to get out of the forest. Let's say if you had your cavalry started here, you flicked once and you landed in the forest, then you're not allowed to do a 2nd flick. And your next turn, you're also only going to have 1 flick. So you have to be very careful whenever you're moving your cavalry around forest areas, as for they don't get as much movement, which is their main advantage. If archers are in forest, then their range decreases to 3 centimeters. So if they're in the forest, then they can only shoot 3 centimeters in front of them instead of the usual 4.5. If the archer unit is outside the forest and they are trying to attack a unit that is inside a forest, then their range decreases to 3.5 centimeters. Just again, because it pretend to be tree cover to block arrows, more or less. Next off are the mountains. Now, the mountains I have characterized by a little dotted brown line with just brown shading inside. Now, if the cavalry is on the mountains, nothing happens to them. If the infantry are on the mountains, however, then their range lowers even more to 1 centimeter, so it's like fighting uphill or downhill. It doesn't matter if you have high ground or low ground advantage, if you're on a hill, the range decreases more. So you have to be careful with that, again, whenever you're, let's say, fighting archers. Speaking of which, whenever, with archers, let's say that we have an archer unit on the hill/mountain area. Their range will then increase to 5.5 centimeters, so they have the high ground. However, let's say if we have an archer unit attacking another unit that is on a hill, then the archer units that's not on the hill range decreases to 3.5 centimeters, again trying to shoot upwards, and it decreases range. The last main terrain feature we have is just water. So I have a little river right here. You are not allowed to flick across the river. No units can travel across. Instead, you have to be able to flick across the bridges. So these bridges aren't that big. However, if you can get some people in here, they might be able to have a little fight in here to see who can gain dominance over the center area. Now, There's certain advantages to these areas, such as with the river. Let's say you had your archers literally on the bridge, then you will most likely be able to shoot inside of this area. Now, or if your archers are on a mountain, then you can definitely shoot inside of that central area because you'll have the 5.5 centimeter advantage. Now, what is this circular centered area? There are two different ways to win this game. One is by eliminating all the troops of your opponent, and the other one is by capturing the center. So it's kind of like King of the Hill in a way. Now, how do you capture the hill? So, one unit has to be inside, fully inside the circular hill area, and they cannot be in combat range. So, if there's archers right here, they'd have 5.5 centimeters. They'd be in range right here. If I put the infantry right here, unit, then they would not be in range of those archers, so they would be out of combat right now. And the unit has to be out of combat range for 3 consecutive turns. It's a long time, however, let's say if one team is entirely trying to focus on taking the mountains, and the other team sent like their infantry to block them, and maybe like cavalry to somewhat flank and protect this area, then this red team could probably capture the command post without actually taking on the battle, even though they would be outnumbered up here. So there's a lot of strategy in this. Another thing with movement, since we're always talking the thing is movement, infantry doesn't seem that strong. So the main part of them is to actually block avenues of movement. So again, if you manage to place all your infantry around this area, the enemy cannot flick into you, since if you flick into an enemy unit, then they have to immediately battle. They would have to either go around the entire unit, or they'd have to destroy the unit. So you can protect whatever is behind the infantry. They're supposed to be basically a shield wall. Another thing with infantry, whenever there are archer units around, so let's say there is an archer unit here. Excuse me, if there's a cavalry unit right here, and there's archers behind, and the cavalry unit, let's say it's like right on top of it, and the archers are right behind the infantry unit. So cavalry get a 2 centimeter range, do reach, or if they do try to reach, you can see that the archers are in range of the cavalry. However, with an infantry unit in front of it, the cavalry cannot attack the archers. Again, you can only measure this from the center, so even if it's an offset more or less, and it's like that, then cavalry still, as long as there is no infantry in the way of the straight line to the other side, then they can only attack the infantry first. However, this does not work with archers. Archers can shoot over infantry / cavalry, so you have to be careful about that. So since archers and the infantry are both in the range, then these blue archers can potentially attack these red archers. Yep. Now we finally get to the thing that most of you have probably been waiting for, which is the main battling system of all these units. So, let's say a battle commences between an infantry and a cavalry right here. So someone's in range. Let's say the infantry is attacking the cavalry. So, I gotta get closer a bit. There we go. Infantry can attack the cavalry now. This heads to the battle phase. Now, the battle phase is all about the roll of the dice. So, of course, since it is a 6-sided die, there are 6 different options that can happen. Well, technically only 3, but you have 6 different opportunities to get any of those 3. Before this, there is a little bit of like a rock, paper, scissors type advantage. So, there is something that is strong against another type of unit. So, infantry is strong against cavalry. Cavalry is strong against archers, and archers are strong against infantry. Now, what does this necessarily mean? So, whenever you roll, it determines, what you roll is going to be the result. So, if the attacking unit is strong against the opponent, so in this case the infantry is strong against cavalry, if they roll a 1, then that means the attacking unit is unbalanced. If they roll a 2 or 3, then the attacking unit kills one of the enemy units, or one of the enemy soldiers. So in this case, this cavalry would go down to 3, or it had 3 soldiers, so it would go down to 2. Or if you roll a 4 to 6, so a 4, 5, or 6, then the attacking unit kills 2 of the enemy soldiers, so this cavalry unit would only be down to 1 soldier left. So you have to keep in mind with your types. Now, I might have mentioned something. Unbalanced. What does that mean? So, if the attacking player rolls a 1, then they are unbalanced. This means that the defending player can now roll the dice. If they roll a 1 or a 2, then nothing happens. So in this case, rolled a 1, nothing would happen. Well, let's say if they rolled a 3, 4, 5, or 6, then that means the defending team, no matter the type or like who's strong against who, they will kill one of the enemy soldiers, or one of the attacking soldiers. So it's going to be like a counter, more or less. So there are ways for the attacker to do a lot of damage, and there's ways for the defender to do damage back. It all depends on the roll. So that was strong. So let's just say now that an archer unit is attacking a cavalry unit. So a weaker force is attacking a stronger force. What this means is if the attacking unit rolls a 1 or a 2, then the unit is unbalanced. So it doesn't matter that they're all archers, they're going to be unbalanced, and the other people can still do a counter roll. Even if they're way out of the cavalry's range, it's still going to be like an unbalanced and counter roll type situation, just to keep it fair. However, if you roll a 3 through 6, then the weaker unit kills one of the enemy units. So try to keep your types in check, because if you have a strong unit attacking a weaker unit, then you could potentially get 2 kills. If you have a weaker unit attacking a stronger unit, you have more of a chance to be unbalanced, losing one of your soldiers, and even if you do kill an enemy soldier, it's only going to be 1 at the maximum. Now, this leaves neutral type units. So if we have a cavalry versus cavalry situation, then that's basically going to be a neutral. No one has advantage over the other since they're both the same type. If the attacking player rolls a 1, if they roll a 1, then the unit is unbalanced. If they roll a 2 through 5, then they kill one of the enemy soldiers, and if they roll a 6, then it kills 2 of the soldiers. So, neutral, still have chance to get high kills, low chance to get unbalanced, but most likely you're going to kill one of the enemy soldiers. So, it's pretty much fair on how this triangle works of advantages. This now leaves one final unit, and that is the assassin. Now the assassin is going to be your strategic player. You can change up how he moves. He can get 3 movements if you want. It all depends on everyone's playstyle and who agrees with when they play the game. However, how the assassin works, he has a range of 2 centimeters and 2 movements, so a good strategy would be to move him in close, attack, and then move him out. Same thing goes for cavalry. You can move, attack, and then move out again if you want. So the reason why I say that with the assassin is since you only have 1 soldier, you want to keep this guy alive. The reason being is although he cannot actually kill anyone, so much for being an assassin, he can technically sabotage an entire person's plan and can turn the favor of battle in whichever way. So let's say the assassin, he is completely neutral against all types, so no one has advantage over him. He has no advantage over no one. But what he can do is prevent the enemy soldier from taking advantage over any other troops on the battlefield. So what this means is, let's say the assassin rolls, or he attacks. If he rolls a 1 or a 2, he is unbalanced, so it's pretty risky. If he rolls a 3 or a 4, this is where the fun begins, because that means for the next turn, player's turn, in which the opposing player moves this unit or attacks with it, and this unit, no matter who they are against, is going to be weak against it. So let's say even if there's archers here and they move and they try to attack these archers, they are going to have a weak status. Yeah. So again, technically they're supposed to be strong against archers. Since the assassin came by and sabotaged them, they're going to be weak for an entire turn. Now, this debuff stays on that unit until they actually attack. So they have to attack or else they're going to keep the debuff on them. This could be changed as well. It might make the assassin overpowered, but I think it's going to spice things up again, that they will have a debuff. So you can like express the debuff by like writing a bleed symbol on it, or like marking it with a crayon or something, or just a pencil on the side, or like I said, you can keep a sheet to the side with all your units' lives, check them off, or like write if they have a assassin debuff on them. So that's if you roll a 3 or 4, then it's 1 turn of that. If you roll a 5 or a 6, then it's going to be 2 turns where this enemy is going to automatically be debuffed. So, debuffed so that they will always be weak whenever they attack. So, that's pretty much the fun of the assassin. Get him in, attack, get him out. Now, there's 2 final things. A unit can only attack once per turn, so the assassin can't attack here, move, attack there, and move away. They can only attack once per... Each unit can only attack once per turn, same thing goes for archers. However, even though each turn a player can only move 3 of their units, all of their units can attack if they are within range. So it doesn't mean that you have to move a unit to attack with it. Another thing is that so another thing is you cannot actually reposition. So let's say you move your 3 and you want to reposition one of your guys to face a different way, that technically counts as movement, so you cannot reposition what angle they're on. They have to stay that angle unless you want to fully move them. Final thing, although you are allowed to have 3 movements, you don't have to move your guys. So if you did want to, let's say, put your infantry right here and make like a little strong L shape, and you don't want to, and your cavalry's down here, your assassins there, and your archers here, and you have a really good like setup right here, you don't have to move any guys on your turn. If you want to attack, you can still attack, but you don't have to do any of that stuff. You can just say in turn, it'll be the opponent's turn again. So this is pretty much going to wrap it up for this tutorial of this game. Again, it's called Empires of Destruction. I'm sure it's going to be really fun whenever you play it. I have it up on my website. You go check it out in the description. I have this map as well as all the rules and instructions, so you don't have to keep referencing this video. You can print out the rules and instructions online, so that, yeah, again, you just don't have to watch it. I see that this video is going to be pretty long right now, so I will make another video pretty soon. Hopefully within a couple of days, maybe just 1 or 2, of me playing it with one of my friends so that you can see how everything actually goes and runs smoothly. If you guys have any suggestions, questions, or anything like that, make sure to check out the Paper Computer Games Discord and or leave them in the comments. As for now, this is the Flamespot, signing out.